All right, everybody. This is the Get Tuned podcast. I'm here with a good buddy of mine, Dustin Cormier, who's of the band Busm. How's it going, Dustin?
Not too bad, Will. I'm so glad to see you. So glad to be hanging out and chatting with you.
Happy to see you too, man. Happy to see you too. Yeah, so basically on this podcast, I bring on musicians that I know and that I respect and ask them a few questions, get to know them, and get everybody else to get to know them a little bit more. So, Dustin, to start off, like how early in life did you identify with music? That was something that you had a passion for.
Hmm. So, thank you, Will. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I know that you're kind of lending a hand out to the people around you, and you're already getting your own face out there. And for you to be lending a hand out to other musicians like me, I appreciate what you're doing, my friend.
Much love, man.
Uh,
Much love.
I love that you're traveling like you are and doing your thing. Um, so I'm Dustin Cormier. My whole family is musical. Me and my brother together have been playing music together for a long time. I was one of the first in the family to sense that what my family had to offer and to teach. They all jammed together. It's fiddle stuff, fiddle tunes. My uncle Tom plays guitar, and my uncle Rick played fiddle. My dad plays the drums. He's a wild rocker, just like I am. Apple didn't fall far from that tree, including all the zaniness that my dad is. He's a fun guy. Um, but I'd say that it was sometime around elementary school. I think grade 7 or 8. I was playing drums actually. My dad had been teaching me drums since probably like grade 6, and I loved the drums. It was an important place to start. Gave me my sense of rhythm, of how to be in a band. Being the drummer, listening to the bass player. That was something my dad he's old hat. He's just so like, you got to stay in pocket with the drummer. And he's a drummer. So there came a point where I learned the bass after I was done with the drums. And my dad showed me the key bits of playing the bass along with the other guys in my family. I jammed with my dad, and I knew that this is something I was good at and that I really enjoyed. It wasn't until there was a point where even before I started playing music, I used to go into my dad's bathtub at his house. He had a big fucking bathroom, and I'd play a CD in this nice big bath that he had, and I'd smoke a joint, and I would listen to Led Zeppelin. I would listen to Pink Floyd. These were CDs that my mom and dad had that I'd heard about, and my mom at some point, I hugely have her to thank. Grades, I'd say grade 5, grade 6. My mom was like, Dustin, I need you. I think you should listen to this music, because I was listening to a lot of rap and hip hop stuff at the time. I'm a poet myself, and like even at the time, I was getting into writing poetry and things. But and my mom's okay with that. She's a musician. She would be okay with me listening to anything. But once I started getting into music, she said, I think you should give this a try. And that probably would have been one of the first ones that I would have listened to, I think, would have been Dark Side of the Moon. And I smoked a joint and I listened to Dark Side of the Moon in this jacuzzi tub. And I was like, I got this impression that these people were making something that sounded amazing and that I wanted to explore. And I would listen to the words. And I thought that this is like the best thing that I have in my life right now. I would go and do school or whatever, and I couldn't wait for these moments when I would listen to music in like a calm place. That's probably, I'd say, around grade 6 is when that first started. Then uh fast forward 2 years later in elementary school, it's when I picked up the bass and then the guitar after playing the drums. I started playing guitar, and I started to realize that I can do and make the same harmonious sound that these guys on the CD can make. It's when I started to realize that I can make myself feel as good as they made me feel, and that I could make other people feel that good. I wanted to be a part of that waterfall. I'd say that was about grade 8 that I got the sense that I can and that I should, just before high school.
love that. I love all of that. So like I played drums first also, and
Yeah,
I agree that it is a huge base to start on. My rhythm, that's where I get all my rhythm from, right?
yeah,
And there is no music without rhythm. Well, there is, but there isn't, right?
yep,
Uh,
yep. I'm totally with you. I
yeah,
mean, you can get into some spacey, noisy, jazzy stuff when you let go of rhythm, which can be its own fun thing. But
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
I
like
always say rhythm is the glue. Go
yeah.
ahead, though. I
Oh,
didn't want to interrupt
100%,
you.
100% it is. And like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd is my favorite band. So like there's you're getting no argument from me there.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I understand the connection to Pink Floyd and like even their like Dark Side of the Moon, amazing. I used to fall asleep listening to The Wall almost every single
Yeah,
night.
yeah,
And then lately I've gotten into over the last like 2 years metal, the Meddle. I'm sure you know what I'm
yep.
talking about.
Oh yeah,
But for the
that's a
listeners that,
favorite.
yeah, for the listeners that don't know, that is a Pink Floyd album that was before Dark Side of the Moon, and it kind of like, in my opinion, really, really based everything that they came after with.
Yeah,
Um,
it solidified what they were doing.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, man, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, cool.
what you answered already like three of my questions, which I love.
Nice.
No, that was great. So
Cool.
like, what projects are you currently working on right now? I know you're with the band Busm. Are you doing any solo stuff? I know you're now. By the time that this gets released, your Christmas song will be released, but I know that
Yep.
that's coming out really, really soon too. So talk about the stuff that you're up to right now.
Yeah, thanks, Will. So, I've been playing music for all this time, and I was doing How to Rock a Campfire for a long time. It's I go
Name
online.
there at the bottom.
Yeah, 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 bingo, right? That's me. I go online and I teach people how to play songs specifically, like how to play "Blowin' in the Wind" by Bob Dylan. People come for the song and they stay for the long-haired stoner guy with the
Yeah,
stoner personality,
yeah,
because that's YouTube's all cult of personality these days, which is part of the thing. Part of the fun of the information is the entertainer who's giving it to you. YouTube is like infotainment.
yep.
That's a buzzword right now. Uh, so I was doing that for a long time, and I'm still doing it. I'm releasing new episodes once a month. There was a while where I was doing once a week,
How long were you
and
doing it for? Did you just start it up because of COVID, or because it was an
no,
online thing, right? So okay,
yeah, I've been doing that since probably 2013.
all right, all right.
Yeah, for quite a while. I've just got a shit ton of videos on there at this point, and I've always done it very raw. Just me, click, press record. Hi everybody, how's it going? I'm Dustin Cormier, and I'm going to teach you this song. Ding, 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 ding. And I just do it very just sort of raw. I try not to put. I don't want to spend a lot of time editing in them and polishing them to make them any more than just this very informal guitar lesson.
Yeah.
Uh,
You've
that's
got
why I
enough
could.
energy for it anyways, right? So like I get,
Yeah, yeah. The entertainment is in my performance.
yeah,
So uh like I wanted to make those like kind of simple like that. I've been doing that since about 2013. At first it was just because I wanted to give something, and I knew that it would also be solidifying my face out to people,
hmm
so that now that I'm doing a band, an actual band, people have a little bit of remembrance of the image that taught them this or that song. I'm in a band called Busm, as you said, and we are releasing that Christmas song December 7th. Um, and then probably we're going to chill out until next year. Right now, I've been mostly focused on, I do have my own solo stuff. I just recently put out a song called uh, Golden Dawn, and I did a music video that I just tried my hand at. I had my friend MG on the camera. I got my girlfriend Bree to be this hot chick with like this old maiden sort of like look to her, and I'm like chasing her through this forest. Uh, that's the music video for Golden Dawn. I've been doing a lot of fun things like that in my own personal musical world. And I do have songs on Spotify that I've been doing as, I recorded these with John Sloan and Bruce McKinnon. John Sloan works at Headstock Music. He's been in a few bands that a lot of people might recognize. Harry Holler, he's with the
Yep.
Doozies right now. And he recorded with me. One There was a period where for some reason I had like $4,000 to burn. I don't remember why. I think I busted my ass doing something. And I don't remember for some reason why I had that money at the time, but I burned all that money on recording with John Sloan. Burned is a strong word, of course. I got some cool shit out of it.
I was gonna
Uh,
say, I don't know if you burned it.
yeah, that's a
That's still great
use.
experience, and Sloan is a great musician. He's an
Yes.
incredible musician.
Yeah, yeah. So it was good. We recorded on a lake, and we got a few songs out of it. At the time, I think that I was writing songs that were too high for my voice, and we didn't really realize practically how that would manifest until we recorded the songs first, and then it was time for me to sing them. And I would try to sing them, and I was just not there. I was smoking a lot of weed in order to make the instruments perfect, but my voice wasn't really there. So right now, what I've been doing is getting other singers to sing those songs that I recorded. Uh, One of them, we got to do Golden Dawn. Her name's Shannon Dooks. It's a girl singing my song, which I think is really fits in a certain way. To have
Okay.
a girl's voice on my brain stock, I've a very feminine part of my personality that, I mean, I'm a guy. I've got the wedding tackle, but inside I've got a lot of feminine consciousness that I like to express, and I'm glad that I got to do that with music. Music is a funny thing that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can
No.
express any dimension of your consciousness that you want.
Exactly.
But to answer your question, you can find me as Dustin Cormier on Spotify, and I've got my own stuff happening there. But lately, I've mostly been focusing on being with my band Busm. Uh, in some ways, I think that there's a creative romance that everybody in a band has to accept, and it's the aesthetics of different people's creation and expression and discipline styles.
Yeah.
Everybody has to get all of these things lined up in order to be able to get a song through to your bandmates without coming off like an asshole. Uh, Making them understand when you have to, I'm fixing this form here and I want it to stay. And everyone's like, okay, this is Dustin's idea. I guess we've got to have this fixed thing, at least until we play it. And then we play it, and then someone like the drummer says, I really think we should do that this way.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to be like, see where he's coming from. And it always works well with us. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we've been doing it so long, is because those dynamics are juicy between us. We can think of a song, or if someone's got an idea, we'll all be like, all right, let's try out the idea that's here. And it's a fun thing to do. That's my favorite thing to do right now, and that's what we're doing in the band is we're writing a few songs. We've already got more songs coming out next year, but we're always trying to. I'm just addicted to that chaotic animal
Yeah.
of creation. To see that, to get my hand on something that's moving and putting it, grasping it, firming it into a song that can be repeated and have a wow factor every time that you play it.
Yeah, and to have a good team behind you as you're talking about, right? Like that's very important, and to be able to work yourself as a team too. Some musicians
Totally.
can have egos and not want to, and there's some very famous ones that do still,
Yep.
but everything works for different bands different ways. I would want to be in a band that works well as a team, obviously, instead of
Yep.
turmoil half the time. But
Totally.
some band like Guns N' Roses were one of those bands where it was chaos.
Yeah. And
Right.
sometimes sometimes that chaos can operate well, or although in the long run, I find that you want to have a velvet, soft interaction with all the people that you're working with as much as possible.
Yeah. And so with this band, you have it's a three piece, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So and you have vocals, bass, lead guitar and like guitar and drums, right?
Yeah,
That's your three piece. Is that
yeah,
your
that's right.
is that your ideal setup for the band, or would you like to add maybe a couple more pieces or something like that at some point?
Well, we've been playing with the idea actually. Even like, me and my brother Sean both write the singing, and we've both been coming into our own vocally as time goes on. But like the paint is kind of often, I always like to say that the paint is wet with this band because there's so much things that we all like doing. One
Yeah,
of our things is that we like to have many different genres and things. So I mean, fuck, to have like a cool, like a synth player, another guitarist might be interesting. But we're at the point where we've been in the game enough and we've got enough of a name for ourselves that we don't want to go out looking. If somebody comes to us and says, you guys are sick and check this out, and they bust out like a synth with like or a keyboard that's really nice, and they explain how they think that they would fit in our band very well, and we'd be like, yeah, cool, rock and roll. Because I do love the three
yeah,
piece is, there's something very special to it. Band people know why. It's because when you've got four, even the mystical numerology of four is funny. It's a square, and like a square shed, like the top can cave in, but if you have a triangular house top, the rain and the sleet
yeah,
and stuff falls off. It's a different architectural integrity. And in the same way, the democratic process is much easier with the three piece because something's either going to lean 2 out of 3 one way or 2 out of 3 the other way.
yeah,
uh so when you're dealing with things in a band, it's like, okay guys, I got this opportunity for us to play a gig here. It's at this bar. It's a little out of the way. We might not get a lot out of it, but I still want to do it, right? If the other two guys say it's not worth it, 2 out of 3. I it's That's how the democratic process works. But with a four piece, someone throws in an idea like that, two guys say yes and two guys say no. How much energy is going to get wasted
yeah,
on
yeah,
the ego dynamics of like figuring that out? It doesn't always happen like that with four pieces. I've been in four-piece bands, and it's not always like that. If the guys are chill, then you'll just move to whatever everyone thinks is just the grooviest thing. But the three-piece thing never has any of that jet lag. Just like, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. Which is, I think, I mean, I don't know, unless like you've really got a point that you're trying to figure out, the boys will be patient with it. But that is what I love about the three piece. The democratics are easy. These are all part of being in a band. It's funny because being in a band is a very different experience from being a solo musician, as I'm sure you're experiencing.
yes,
uh
yes, it is.
because I often think of it as like, in the world of mysticism in Tantra, one person who can have their whole sexual energy complex, if they can have the bliss of doing their thing and making themselves feel great, and they don't need a partner. Some people might say that there's a strength in that because there's stability in it. Some people don't need lovers, they can just go about life themselves, but it'll always lose a certain elastic snap if you're doing it all yourself creatively. That
I agree with
working with
that.
other people, no matter what, two heads are just going to be better than one, no matter how much a solo person thinks otherwise. But with that being said, some people who do the solo thing have to just, if it works, it works. If it stands on its own 2 feet, even the duos, there's a lot of duos that are very common right now that a lot of people are liking. Crownlands is a duo that's doing well. Cleopatra is a duo from
Subsonic,
around here. Subsonic, yep,
Silk
yep.
Sonic.
I'm sorry, Silk Sonic. Okay,
That's okay.
I don't know them, but
It's
uh,
Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak. They just won a bunch of American Music Awards actually, like last week. But Crownlands, you're right, is another one that's local
cool,
from where we are too, and
totally.
they've been killing it lately.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Crownlands is always doing well.
Yeah,
So, all these different things for anybody who's a musician, it's fun to just see how these different flows can go for your creative process. Uh, and I like that, like even being in, I've never been in a 5-piece, but 5 pieces have the same. democratic integrity, it's always going to fall 3 and 2.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing. Like once everyone kind of like a 5 piece, I've been told, has a real good structural integrity to it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
would love to be in something like that, like
Yep.
2 guitarists and another guitar and a keyboard player. What were you going to say though? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could see that being a lot of fun too. It's fun to just even think about all the different dynamics that you can have. Uh, I've been playing bass the whole time in Busm, and I love doing that because even different bands have different sways according to what's the most, the front presence of the band. Our band is very bass heavy because, well, it's half bass heavy and then half guitar heavy because my brother and I each write half of the songs. So some songs have like a real bass rhythm to it, and then some songs have just like a guitar sort of jaggedness to it.
Yeah.
So even within the configurations, you can have different chemistries.
So, how do you like identify what you want to write about? Right? I'm sure there's you grab from very different areas and stuff like that, but is it all personal or is it all like research stuff? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
What exactly is it that you like to write about the most, or what
Ah,
brings you to that?
yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, uh, I think that when I write songs, I mean, it's different songs for different times, obviously, but most times when I feel like I'm identifying with a song, it's usually because the song is an image of some kind of catharsis, usually for me. I like to say I'm like a Scorpio, and I've got a lot of that like intense things that are intense. I often like to write about. Um, Intense and philosophical. Some songs I try to really say something within whatever it is that's being said, but sometimes, usually for me, I like it to be like imagery in the sense of, for example, uh I've got a song just called Pretty Kitty, and it's like a BDSM sort of like vibing thing, and the whole time I'm saying, hey pretty kitty, come here, kind of thing. And the whole kitty thing is like an image of the archetype of dominance and then the archetype of submission, and it's just a song with that image, but the symbolism I think behind it is just interesting to marvel at, even if I don't always, as an artist, sometimes I've got to express forms that I don't necessarily fully abide by. The BDSM thing I kind of do, but I mean, fuck, only to a point. But I liked writing a song about it, that cathartic sexual taboo of BDSM and of like, like the come here baby kind of thing. Um, that's sort of like a lot of the things that I like to write about is cathartic meaning like shocking.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries almost a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And usually the catharsis that I like to apply is just relates to the person's experience. It's me being allowed to have an intense experience.
Yeah.
That's something that I often write about. Like I'm interested in psychedelic experiences, and a lot of the songs that I write tend to just describe a crisis that comes from having an intense experience of any sort,
So
and I'm in the character.
I didn't have this question written down, but I'll ask it right now. Do you do a lot of writing on psychedelics then?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I would say that that's, I like to think that a lot of my songs are really inspired by the moments that I have where I'm on some kind of psychedelic trip, for
Very
sure.
pink, very Pink Floydian.
Yeah, yeah, Pink Freudian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a yoga person, and when if I was to do something like to have a mushroom trip, for example, as a hippie guy, often the consciousness about hippies is that the more close to your body's natural chemistry, the less
Yeah.
toxic it is. Mushrooms, we are very, even psychedelic mushrooms are close to our natural biochemistry. So I'll like to stay to the stuff that's kind of close to the earth if I can help it. I'll go on a mushroom trip by myself. I'll sit beside a river. Usually I'll do yoga, and I often have mystical experiences where, the filters of my how the brain typically works. When you're on a psychedelic, it alters it so that I'm not just thinking about what I would usually be thinking about on a Tuesday in the afternoon, perhaps thinking about my band or thinking about the business I got to do. A lot of those filters are wiped under those moments. And so your brain is just reacting to the sensory input that's going on out in front of you. And I do a lot of yoga, and I put myself into intense cathartic states of, breath and energy. And when I release it, there's an impressions of images, symbols that are rushing to my head about cathartic transformation and the pain of having to live, the glory of getting on top of that pain. These sort of philosophical things are just right there, and I'm definitely not thinking about what I'm going to do when I get home.
Yeah.
As an artist, I like to explore these altered states for this reason. But just like how, if I don't have the cushion in the front seat of my car, I can still drive my car. But having that cushion just makes it,
Yeah.
it's nice to have that cushion. It makes the experience different. That's how I think of cannabis with writing too. So I can, I like to think that I can apply my artistic process with or without cannabis. When it's there, it's different.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about different things in different ways.
Yeah. And you write different songs,
Yep,
right? Like yeah, the song is going to be a totally different song at that point. Yeah, and I'm
totally.
with you. I've indulged in some mushrooms every once in a while, and
Mm-hmm.
they do help a lot creatively. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do it at work or anything like that, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
when you're and one of the best spots, go to a little river. I have a pond that I like to go to. It's called
Nice.
Yep. So like, and there's a bunch of ducks there that I absolutely love. So
Yes, the
yeah,
dogs.
it's a great spot to go. And actually, before I came to Nashville, I said I went and said goodbye to all the ducks. I wasn't on mushrooms at that point, but
Cool.
they're my friends, so I went and said goodbye.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, yeah. Say goodbye to the experience until next time.
Yeah. So
They felt it.
do you prefer being in the studio or do you prefer playing live whenever you're playing? I know it's a different experience either way. I
Hmm.
understand, obviously, the process of being in the studio is grueling sometimes, but it's also really, really rewarding at the same time too, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
there's a little bit of both each way. What do
Mm.
you think you prefer, or touch on both?
I would, yeah, you're right to say both. But how I would answer it is that, my brain often is just changes from one sphere to the other, just like all the time.
Yeah,
There are times where I'm sitting back and if I'm on a wave where my phone's been getting bugged calls for some reason.
that's okay. We can edit that out anyways.
I'm just going to turn that off. But, so there are kind of, uh, shit, what were we talking about? You asked me the question.
Here, let's do this again. Okay,
Sure.
I'll just edit that part out, and then we'll start as if I'm asking the question over again.
That sounds good. Thanks, Will.
So like I know that the process of being in the studio can be grueling sometimes, but it's also really, really rewarding sometimes. Playing live is the exact same way, right? It can be very taxing on the body, and the mind, but it's also at the same time it's some of the most exciting times that you can have as a band. Do you prefer one over the other, or if not, then touch on both and how much you like both of them?
Gotcha. Gotcha. Thank you, Will. Yeah, that's an interesting question. So it's like, what would be my preference if I had a preference, playing live, performing, or playing in studio? Uh, you're kind of right to say both in a certain way, but what I wanted to say is that uh, my brain will just go from one sphere to the other all the time, one hemisphere to the other. In my moments where I'm lying back and I'm like, I want to be proud that I did something with my life. I don't care about the pleasures that I have in my life, like all the good things are good, but I really want to be proud of myself. Uh, I think that I like that consciousness likes being in studio because studio is more pressure. It's kind of more difficult. I think being in the studio is more difficult. It's more meticulous. It's painstaking. Sculpting the body of the sound of a guitar, making it continuous throughout a whole song, constantly tuning your guitar, and then chugging out something that rhythmically has feeling, but is also mathematically perfect.
Yeah.
It can be very meticulous, and I love the meticulousness of it. There's a part of me that wants to say the studio. At some deep level, I like creating. That's probably, if I had infinite studio time, here's how I'll answer the question. If I had the choice to never play on stage again, but I had infinite studio time, I would take it.
Okay.
I would take it. Uh, that being said, I love performing. I don't know. It's a hard one to say, but I think I would still, that is my final answer.
Yeah,
I live for the
I've seen you
creation.
I've seen you perform, obviously, and when you're on stage, you look like you're having a blast every single time. So that's one reason why I wanted to ask the question, because I've never been there when you've been in the studio. So I understand, like I said, there's a lot of hard work into it, and it's not smiles the entire time, right? I know that, but
Yeah.
when you get that process finished and you put out something that's like your life's work now, it's one of the most rewarding
Yeah.
ever, in my opinion as well. Like I do love being in the studio
Right.
also, but at the same time, I don't know how I would answer that question either. I'm not going to answer that one right now.
Right. It is a tough one. It's a tough one, but it's a good question, because for me, it's funny now that I think about it. The studio represents that catharsis I was talking
Yes.
about, the transformative impulse.
Yep, it
You
does.
have to transform when you're in the studio. Performing it, I'm going to, performing's the same. So I'm going to stick to my original answer. I would take the studio. They're both cathartic. I love them both, but I would take the studio.
Okay. All right, so we got a couple more questions left here for anybody that's just joining right now listening. We're with Dustin Cormier of Busm. We've been having a great chat so far. Um, so this is the last question that I have specifically about the band. Where would you like to see your band go in 5 years? Do you want to continue just staying on passion projects? I know you still do a lot of local shows and stuff like that, and you've also been trying to move more into, I think, bigger venues and stuff like that, such as the Biltmore, I think, and Studio 44 that just got redone also. So touch on that. Where would you like to see you guys go in the next 5 years? Could be even internationally.
Yeah. Well, I got so many eggs in so many baskets right now. I'm also like teaching astrology on YouTube, and that's taking off in its own funny way. So this band has always been something that we can all like write for it, record for it, and then jam and even do shows. Slowly, we've been kind of building it, I guess you could say. And that's why for a long time we've only gotten into Toronto, we've been to Toronto quite a few times. But we've been pouring more and more into Toronto. So I recently got out of school. I was teaching astrology, or I mean, that I was in school to learn astrology.
Yeah.
Now that I'm done school, I'm going to be taking vocal lessons. I've always wanted to take like a proper vocal lesson because with music, I learned music theory with guitar, and I know theory is universal to all instruments. So my guitar teacher really, he was showing me theory as well as how to play guitar properly and not to have bad habits. I'd like to learn the same thing with vocals, the bad habits, how to sing properly, singing from your diaphragm. I've had a lot of these lessons, but I think that my next project is to take my vocals to the next level and start really being able to do what I see a lot of singers putting the same amount of full force and effort into their vocals that that they do. I want to be able to do the same thing because I put force into my vocals, and we put the passion into it, but it's the one thing that I would love to actually go to a teacher and get succinct and get standardized.
Yeah, yeah, and just
That's
hone it
that's
a
my
little bit,
next.
just hone it a little bit more, right?
Yes,
Than what you're at
yes.
right now. Yeah,
Yeah, you got it. You got to be humble and just know when there's something that you can always do better on.
I
And
agree,
I
man.
think that it's better than denying it and flying low.
Yeah. Well, you'll never improve unless you understand where you can improve. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah.
that's if you don't accept that you can improve at places, right? Like I'm not perfect. I know myself too, and we're
Hmm.
always every in the day you die as a musician is the day that you stop learning. I
Yeah,
truly think so. Or else you're not a musician, or else you just pick up a guitar and you play every once in a while. You know what I mean?
yeah. Then
Like
you're an entertainer who plays guitar.
yeah, and that's okay. That's
Yeah, it is. It's its own thing,
yeah,
but I think it's an important aspect of the true spirit of a musician to understand what we're talking about right now.
yeah.
The it's an instrument for our growth as people. And if you're not growing as a person, then it's going to be hard to be a truly capable musician who's growing through the spots that you can get attached to for comfort's sake. You got to be able to get past those things.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. All right. This is going to be the last question, and it's not really a question. Do you have any message that you want everybody to hear? You also mentioned earlier about that astrology thing. If you want to talk about that
Mm.
for a second, you can too.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I appreciate that, but I know this is more of a music channel than anything. Um, uh, all I've really got to say is to, keep up the fun and the love of playing. Right now, with a lot of people are doing their thing, playing guitar on in front of their camera because during the current pandemic that we're under, it's difficult for people to get together like it was just a few years ago. A few years ago, like I love the nights at the round table. I love a whole bunch of musicians. Each one's got their joints and their beer in front of them and a songbook. And everybody, especially when you get into with a group of guys and everyone's like, man, you guys, like, how about we make a songbook, print up all the lyrics, and then we sit down every Saturday at 6 p.m. and we all stomp our fists and do the nights at the round table playing music together. And then I'll play a song, and then okay, Jimmy, you're next to play the next song, and then this person's next. Those things, playing together, getting at the heart of the matter, that for me is an important thing that is kind of losing a lot of its momentum because of the situation that's happening right now. It is what it is. I mean, we're in a pandemic. So people have just got to hold on as much as they can. But I am just like, I'm like, it's like we're out to sea and I've got this like golden chicken that lays golden eggs. And I'm like, we have to keep this thing alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
No matter how hairy things get, let's not eat the chicken. Let's hold on to it and try to, I don't know if that metaphor is working right
maybe.
now, but I hope it's getting out there. Keep your hearts open and keep jamming together and not just trying to get some kind of very successful business model where you can sell an image or a brand out there. That's important, but don't lose the heart of it. That's where I'm at.
That was a perfect segue into my next question. What are your social media accounts?
Ah, nice. Well, hey, it all counts, Will. So I appreciate you throwing it at me. You can find me on dustincormier.net. You can find my band at busmband.com. From there, you can pretty much find out everything about me. And you can look for us on Spotify as well. Again, my personal stuff is on there as Dustin Cormier. And then my band is called Busm.
We will put links for everything in the comments and stuff like that as well, or in the info description on the video. So we'll make sure that everybody can get to those places as well too. Everybody, this was Dustin Cormier from Busm. Thank you so much for for being on today. I really appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. I miss you.
I miss you too, Will. I can see that you're doing well and that you're doing the thing, and I'm proud of you, buddy. I'm proud that you're getting out there, you're doing this channel and helping others out by shining like you always do, buddy. It's nice to see it.
Thank you very much, man. All right, that's it. That's the Get Tuned podcast episode with Dustin Cormier.